So Ontario is facing a huge housing affordability crisis.
Canada may allow foreign buyers to purchase homes again.
Let's talk about housing. Why does housing in Ontario feel like it's rigged? And what can we do about it?
Canada will never see $200,000 homes again.
There's a quiet crisis going on behind the scenes here in Ontario real estate.
Ontario's average price point is $822,000, so that's definitely up from the national average.
We're in a housing crisis.
Now, with Brampton's rapid rise, do you think there's a case of overdevelopment?
Canada is the second largest country on earth. We have a housing crisis. We have record immigration.
Canada is not building enough homes.
How big is the gap?
Welcome to Canadian Rant. Canada is the second largest country on earth, yet somehow we're facing the third largest housing crisis in the world. Let that sink in. A nation with vast land, endless resources, and one of the lowest population densities globally has become a place where rent is unaffordable, home ownership feels impossible, and even finding a place to live is a struggle. Young Canadians are giving up on buying homes. Families are being priced out of their own communities. Seniors are downsizing not by choice, but by necessity. And newcomers arrive full of hope, only to discover there's nowhere affordable to live. This isn't just a housing issue. It's an economic crisis, a social crisis, and a policy failure decades in the making. Today, we're breaking down how Canada ended up here, why this housing crisis is now among the worst in the world, and why having all this land means absolutely nothing if the system itself is broken. Because when people can't afford a roof over their heads, everything else starts to collapse.
We're in a housing crisis.
Now, with Brampton's rapid rise, do you think there's a case of overdevelopment?
We don't have enough housing in Brampton. And with the exponential growth in Brampton over the past decade, we don't have enough space to just develop single detached homes. And like any big city, we're now 800,000 people, second largest in the GTHA. We need to build up. We need to intensify. We need to find ways to be efficient in the space that we have left. And so when you ask the question about whether or not there's overdevelopment, the reality is that across the province of Ontario, we're in a housing crisis.
Ontario's average price point is $822,000, so that's definitely up from the national average. When you look at where income is in Ontario versus where the average home price is, income has an index to inflation. And when you look at how people are spending, for every dollar they're earning, they're spending $1.71. So they're spending more than they're earning.
There's a quiet crisis going on behind the scenes here in Ontario real estate. Let's have a look what's going on behind the scenes. The media is concentrating more on inflation and interest rates, but the real storm that's brewing is insolvency, okay, with car owners, with credit card debt, and homeowners, okay? The rate is rising so quickly here. I'm going to read from you some statistics here. So in Toronto and the surrounding suburbs, forced sales are rising fast, with lenders seizing properties at levels we haven't seen in over a decade. And in neighborhoods like Highland Creek and Scarborough, nearly 1 in 10 new listings this year have become power of sales. Brampton, Oshawa, Stouffville, and Brock, between 13% of their listings on the MLS are power of sales. There's so much happening in real estate right now. I'm going to keep you informed. Again, I'm Inez Critic from Royal LePage Urban, and we'll talk soon. Bye for now.
So Ontario is facing a huge housing affordability crisis, and I'm just curious how it's affecting the way you think about the housing market.
It's hard to find people that are renting, and the stuff that people are renting are either not in good shape or just not affordable.
The landlord, the rent was much cheaper when we moved in, but he made it like a bidding war to move in, and I was desperate to have somewhere to live because everywhere else is so expensive.
So they jacked the prices up, bidding you off of other people.
Yes.
And so what are you thinking when you graduate?
I'll probably try and find either enough people to rent a house with together or find a large enough apartment to rent with other friends as well, just because it's the only way that it's manageable.
If I wanted to live downtown for the school year and find a lease, I just needed to commit to something at that time, and I probably will have to move out because they're absolutely going to jack up the price.
So it's not rent controlled?
It is not rent controlled.
The hunger report just came out, and food bank use is way up in Toronto, like 4.1 million visits last year. and most of those people have jobs and apartments, but then they can't buy food.
Oh, I know so many people that use food banks who like work with me, and like they can barely afford to pay their rent, and like they have to use food banks. So it's really sad that like Doug Ford doesn't care about this, and he's like continuing to line the pockets of his friends and billionaires. Literally, like, there's people that are really struggling in Toronto that need help, but he doesn't.
Well, I love it that somebody from California rooted for the Jays over the Dodgers.
I think the Blue Jays kind of had better heart and spirit than the Dodgers.
Okay, you're a keeper. We got to find you a place to live.
That would be great. I would really prefer that.
Canada is the second largest country on earth. We have a housing crisis, we have record immigration, so why don't we just build a new city in the middle of nowhere? I dug deep on this. Turns out we've tried this, and it went so badly that it changed Canadian policy forever. Most Canadian cities weren't planned. Toronto was a trading post, Halifax was a fort. They grew by accident over time, but in the 20th century, we got ambitious. We thought we could build a city from scratch. Exhibit A would be Kitimat in BC, the 1950s. The aluminum giant Alcan looked at a remote rainforest and dropped a very cool $500 million, that's over 3 billion today, to build an entire city, dam, port, homes, schools, everything. And it worked. It's actually still there. So, in 1981, the government said, let's do it again, but for coal, they built Tumbler Ridge. Built a rail line, built a town designed for 10,000 people. The cost was over $1 billion. The brutal math was analysts calculated the government spent roughly $1 million for every single job created. Coal prices crashed. The town peaked at less than half of its target. Housing values went to zero. The lesson the government learned, never again. So for the last 40 years, we haven't added a new dot to the map. We've switched to fly-in, fly-out camps, no town, no risk. But you're probably thinking, that was the 80s. We have better planning now, better tools, technology. Why not try again? It's because the math got worse. Every new home in Canada requires about $107K in municipal infrastructure, roads, pipes, sewers. A modest new city of 50,000 people, you need $2 billion for roads and pipes. Add schools, hospitals, fire stations, you're looking at over $5 billion before anyone moves in. Municipalities can't borrow that. They're already facing $600 billion infrastructure gaps, just trying to fix what we already have. And the kicker that explains some of the property taxes is that studies show that sprawl development, those new subdivisions on the edge of towns, cost the city about $465 per person per year, more than they actually generate. Sprawl loses money. Density is the only thing that seems to actually pay the bills. So because we refuse to plan new cities, we got the messy default of the commuter belt. Look at Brampton, Ontario. 1991, 234,000 people. Today it's nearly 700. It wasn't designed to be a major city. It just kind of happened because Toronto is too expensive. It's infrastructure that was never designed for this, but Canada is slowly starting to figure this out. We're seeing a new model emerge, Indigenous-led development. Look at Sinook in Vancouver. The Squamish Nation is building 6,000 homes on just 10 acres. That's roughly 10 times denser than Manhattan. It's because they're on reserve land. They don't have to follow the exact city zoning. They're just building what people actually need, which is housing. We're also seeing the end of single-family zoning laws in BC and Ontario. You can now build 4 units on most residential lots without a rezoning fight. The housing crisis isn't necessarily a land problem. We have more land than anyone else on earth. It's a geometry problem. Building in the middle of nowhere has failed. Tried building an endless sprawl. It's financially bankrupt. The future of Canada isn't maybe a new dot on the map. It's fixing the dots we already have. Please like and follow.
Canada will never see $200,000 homes again. And before you blame me, let me tell you why I'm actually right. And I keep hearing it. Why can Americans buy a house for $200K and we're stuck at $1 million? Must be greedy realtors driving up prices. Okay, let's sit down and let's actually break this thing open. First off, the US has something we don't. Tons of flat buildable land spread across the country. Canada, the Canadian Shield covers half our country, solid rock. Then there's protected greenbelt, farmland, and permafrost up north. Our buildable land near where people want to live is seriously limited. Second, our construction costs are higher. In major Canadian cities, you're looking at $300K plus just to build the structure. And that's before land, before development fees, before waiting months for permit approvals. And here's the thing that people miss. Those $200K American homes, they're in places like Iowa, West Virginia, or smaller Missouri towns. Beautiful communities, but not the same market as New York or LA. So when we compare Toronto or Vancouver prices to more affordable American regions, we're comparing 2 different types of markets. We're not getting 200K homes back in our major cities. but we could get real affordability if we fixed zoning, sped up approvals, and built way more supply. So what do you think? Would cheaper prices alone solve this, or do we need to tackle the real barriers?
Canada is not building enough homes.
How big is the gap?
According to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, Canada needs 3.2 million new homes by 2035. That's nearly 290,000 new homes per year. But we're only on track to build about 227 annually. That leaves us with a 700,000 home shortfall over the decade.
What is CMHC saying?
The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation says to restore affordability from 2019, we need to double housing starts. That means we need to be building about 430 to 480,000 new homes per year.
That's a huge jump. Are we even close?
Nope. In 2024, Canada completed about 276 new homes. That's the highest ever, but we still fell short.
We are getting faster, but we're actually not improving.
Exactly. Experts say closing the gap means faster construction with fewer red tape delays, more investment, more workers, and more affordable building techniques.
And I also think that the government should take it easy for the developers.
Should Canada be more flexible on how they approve new developments?
Comment below.
Foreign buyers could be back in Canada. Watch this. Canada may allow foreign buyers to purchase homes again, with Canada's housing minister reviewing the foreign buyer ban. This is part of a broader initiative to reopen Canada to more foreign capital, which could change the foreign home buyer ban starting 2027. Developers are also calling for easier foreign investment laws, aiming to spark a struggling market for new homes, saying that new projects rely heavily on investors, including foreign ones, to secure project financing. The foreign buyer ban first went in place on January 1st, 2023. However, it looks like it may not be around much longer. So what do you guys think? Should foreign buyers be allowed back in the Canadian real estate market? Let me know.
Would say first and foremost, Build Canada Homes is just launching here. We just opened the portal. We have just the initial capitalization in the budget of $13 billion. We also have $51 billion of housing enabling infrastructure. So combined, a significant investment that's designed to attract private investment in housing. The way we've built affordable housing for the last 3 decades is not enough. It's not being built fast enough. There's not enough capital coming to invest in affordable housing. So we're looking at crowding in investment from other levels of government and private sector and scaling up the work for affordable housing.
Let's talk about housing. Why does housing in Ontario feel like it's rigged? And what can we do about it? It just seems like we have been dealing with this topic for most of our lives. Living here has always been expensive. Whether you're trying to buy your first home or rent something reasonable, or just to stay in the neighborhood you grew up in, it just feels like the system is working against you. And you're not imagining this. A lot of it is really rigged. The problem isn't just supply chain. It's the game itself. Politicians like to say that we just need to build more homes. Sure, that's a part of it. But that's not the whole plan. We're in trouble. And the truth is, homes aren't being built where people actually want them to be built, where they need to live. The bulk of the new homes are either ultra luxury condos or faraway subdivisions that require cars, long commutes, and expensive infrastructure for you to get by. The developers sit on approved land because they know prices will keep rising. In Ontario alone, over 300,000 housing units have been approved, but they're just not built yet. That's not a supply issue. It's just a delay that benefits spectators. Zoning laws are locking people out. In many cities, up to 70% of residential land is zoned for single-family homes only. That means that you can't legally build duplexes, triplexes, or even small apartment buildings, even in neighborhoods with schools, transit, and services, where you would think you could really benefit. So how did it get so broken? What happened? This didn't happen overnight. It's the result of a lot of small decisions that added up. Going as far back, the municipal zoning designed in the 1950s, obviously that hasn't kept up with modern life. Governments have offloaded affordable housing responsibility to the private sector, and the private sector's job is to churn a profit. So it doesn't solve homelessness, for example. We reward people who already own homes with tax exemptions, incentives, and policies where renters and first-time homebuyers carry the burden. For example, If you bought a home in the 1900s, the late 1900s, 1995, it likely cost you 3 to 4 times your income. Today, that's up to 14 times the average income. In places like Toronto, Peel, even outside of the GTA, an average home price is still over 700,000. That's not sustainable, and it's just not fair. So what can we actually do about it? Here's our plan. It's a centrist plan. Unblocking the zoning bottleneck. That's the first step. We'll legalize gentle density like triplexes, layaway homes, and low-rise buildings in every neighborhood. We'll speed up approvals without cutting environmental corners. We'll give incentives to cities that say yes to growth, not just delay. I think this is a good place to start. Alternatively, tax the speculation, not the shelter. Impose stronger vacancy taxes on empty units and land banks. We'll close some loopholes for house flipping and numbered corporations hoarding units. I think that's reasonable. We'll make homes for living in, not just for trading. I think we need places to live today. A lot of people just don't have appropriate shelter. Another aspect is that we'll build public and non-profit housing again. Let's make a commitment to at least 50,000 units of mixed income housing over 5 years, owned and operated by municipalities, co-ops, and land trusts, using unused public land near transit and services instead of selling it off to the highest bidder. These are just common sense things that we can implement right away with very little friction. So let's take it further. Let's talk about protecting tenants without driving out the landlords. If the landlords are discouraged, it's going to affect housing. And if the tenants are unprotected, it's going to affect housing. So let's support for long-term renters, and let's support for their rights. Let's include fair eviction rules and rent transparency. At the same time, give small landlords clear rules and financial certainty to maintain housing quality. That's only fair that we play both sides. Stop blaming newcomers. This is something we must stop doing. Immigration isn't the problem. Poor planning is. Let's align immigration targets with housing and job strategies. So we're growing together, not putting people in competition for shelter. I mean, what a ridiculous idea. We need to provide housing for people who are new here and provide opportunities. And if this is not the case, then we should be more responsible with inviting people to our country. Let's review this and go over some final thoughts. Look, it isn't about left versus right here. It's about what works. If you're a homeowner, this is about protecting the value of your home without choking out your kid's future. If you're renting, and it's about fairness and predictability. As a renter, you need to know what your bills are going to be. If you're a builder or a developer, this is about getting clarity and consistency, not getting into political gridlocks and red tape. The housing crisis isn't unsolvable. It's just been made that way by leaders who talk around it instead of fixing it. We believe housing should be built for people, not just profit. And let's make Ontario a place where homes are for living, not just for investing, not just for flipping, and most certainly not for speculating. Let's get to work. This is a big issue. We have to come together, put the right pressures in place to solve it. Until next time, this is Mansour from the Ontario Centrist Party.
Canada's housing crisis didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen by accident. It's the result of years of poor planning, weak accountability, and policies that treated housing as an investment first and a human need second. While population growth accelerated, housing supply lagged. While prices surged, wages stalled. And while governments debated, everyday Canadians were quietly pushed out. What makes this crisis so alarming is not just the cost, it's the scale. Canada now ranks among the worst housing markets in the world for affordability. Entire generations are locked out of home ownership. Rent takes up more than half of some households' income. Homelessness is rising in cities that once prided themselves on opportunity and stability. And all of this is happening in a country that simply should not be short on space. But housing isn't just about land. It's about infrastructure, zoning, construction capacity, financing, and political will. And when those systems fail to work together, the result is what we see today: a crisis hiding in plain sight. This housing shortage ripples through everything. Workers can't afford to live near their jobs. Businesses struggle to hire families, delay having children, communities hollow out, inequality deepens. A country cannot thrive when shelter becomes a luxury. And yet, Canadians are often told to accept this as the new normal, to lower expectations, to rent forever, to move farther away, to wait patiently. But here's the truth. Housing crises don't fix themselves. They require bold action, long-term planning, and leaders willing to put people ahead of speculation. They require treating housing not as a wealth-building tool for a few, but as a foundation for society as a whole. Canada still has time to change course, but only if we're honest about how bad this has become. This is Canadian Rant. We don't sugarcoat the numbers. We don't ignore uncomfortable realities. And we don't pretend that a country this big should feel this small. If you believe housing should be affordable, accessible, and stable, not a gamble, then this conversation matters. Thanks for watching. Stay informed, stay vocal, and don't let anyone tell you this crisis is normal, because it isn't.